listening to Combat Sports UK.
Combat Sports UK.
Jared Cannonier rolled back the years this weekend at the Apex, where he defeated Gregory Rodriguez in sensational fashion. Now, the card itself was really a very good card, especially for the Apex. Now, that may be something to do with the old gloves coming back, but we're going to look at some next fights for the big winners from that card. First off, we will start with, of course, the main man in that main event, Jared Cannonier. Approaching 41 years of age, he really turned back time, and he put on a stellar performance against a rising contender in Gregory Rodriguez. Now, Robocop was on a real hot streak coming into this fight, and in that very first round, many fans did think this could be the end of Jared Cannonier, but he fought back so well and came back with a round 4 TKO over Gregory Rodriguez. Now, for Jared Cannonier, I think he summed it up very well in his post-fight press conference. Now, 41 years of age, title shots are sort of out the window for him at this stage of his career, especially with the people above him. Israel Adesanya, Robert Whittaker, Imavov, Borrallo have all beaten Jared Cannonier. He's beaten Sean Strickland, who's also above him, so he could be pushing for a rematch there, possibly, just to get him back into a title shot conversation, but I really don't see that happening. Now, for Jared Cannonier, he is in that sort of gatekeeper position. We don't want to be saying that about someone of skilled level of Jared Cannonier, but that's the position he's found himself in. Now, for middleweights rising, you're looking at Brendan Allen versus Anthony Hernandez coming up. That's going to be a great fight. A winner there, by all means, they have to grab that mic and call for someone of the ilk of Jared Cannonier at 41 years of age. Those prospects are really going to be thinking that's an opportunity to scalp a former title contender. And the rest of the division above that, you are looking, they are sort of matched up or in readiness for title shots. The likes of Imavov and Borrallo looking to contend for a shot after someone like Khamzat Chimaev gets a shot, most likely towards sort of the middle of the year. So I think for Cannonier, he's going to be looking at, unfortunately, down the rankings at someone like Allen or Hernandez next, whoever does win in that co-main event at UFC Seattle. In the opposing corner, you've got Gregory Rodriguez, who was coming into this fight on a hot streak. If he picked up a win here, he'd be looking at the likes of Whittaker and Adesanya next as a call-out. But again, a finish from Jared Cannonier was violent. So for Rodriguez, it's back to the drawing board. You're looking possibly at maybe a move up in weight. Now, he's at 6'3", is a huge frame, even for middleweight. He's been a really strong, well-built prospect, but he's very thick, and he could look at a move at 205. That may be a step in the future for Gregory Rodriguez, someone that is also floating between those two weight classes, someone like Paul Craig. Now, Paul Craig is, I think, recently had a fight with Anthony Smith fall away. So again, Paul Craig may be looking between middleweight and light heavy. Gregory Rodriguez could be a good matchup for him. But again, Gregory Rodriguez has got that elite ground game as well as Paul Craig. So that could be a great one. But again, for Rodriguez, it could be a move up in weight class next for him. If not, by all means, I think he's got a future here at middleweight. Again, it may be a case of rebuilding, and then he could then possibly enter the top 10 of the rankings quite soon with another big win. In the co-main event, you had Moroccan featherweight pick up his biggest win of his career. Youssef Zalal beating Calvin Kattar. Now, the decision itself was a very clear one. I think Youssef Zalal did cruise the fight. It was a bit of a slower fight, especially if you're looking at Youssef Zalal's last three submission wins in a row. He was coming onto this fight in some real hot form. Calvin Kattar has been a stalwart in this featherweight division. Now, unfortunately, he's fallen ever so slightly down those rankings, now number 10. After this loss here, he may drop even further down. For Youssef Zalal, it was such an opportunity for him to jump into the rankings. He took it with both hands. The performance itself was an intelligent one, and it was a smart one from him. He didn't go all guns blazing, because someone like Calvin Kattar can catch you cold if you do make a mistake. So I think it was a really smart performance by Zalal. The win was the most important thing, and he got that one done by decision. So for Youssef Zalal, he's looking up the rankings next. Ortega was the call-out. I like that call-out. It was a great call-out. But I think Brian Ortega, I've not heard anything about Brian Ortega at all for ages. Now, I think he's probably moving up to lightweight. I think that's something that you may see an announcement about in the future. But for Youssef, I think Brian Ortega days at featherweight are done. So I'd be looking at someone like Aljamain Sterling next for Youssef Zalal, another wrestle-heavy fighter. Now, Aljamain Sterling just also got a win over Calvin Kattar was also and inspiring and something the fans weren't too keen to see. So if Zalal can go in with someone like Sterling that isn't necessarily a fan favourite because of that grappling heavy style, if Zalal can get a good win, a finish there, by all means he's looking at the likes of Arnold Allen, Yair Rodriguez, who is rumoured to be fighting at some point this year, or moving up possibly even to a Lopez or Evloev. So Zalal, I think he's got one more before he gets into title contention. Aljamain Sterling is the name I'm putting forward for the Moroccan Devil. For Calvin Kattar, I did mention he has unfortunately fallen down these featherweight rankings quite drastically, and he's tumbling right down them. He's in a position now where he could be looking at being fed to the wolves, unfortunately. With the UFC, he's now on a 4-fight skid. Again, that Emmett loss was a controversial one, but the defeats to Allen, Sterling, and now Yusuf Zalal, they're not painting a pretty picture for Calvin Kattar. For him, I'm looking slightly outside the rankings. You could be someone who, again, like Zalal's just done, use Kattar to get into the rankings. I think Kattar's in that spot now in his career. It is a difficult spot for him. But someone like Steve Garcia, who's on a 5-fight finish streak, he just had a fight with Edson Barbosa that unfortunately fell off. He's definitely going to be raring to go. I'm sure he's got the UFC on the phone calling for Steve Garcia getting a shot against Calvin Kattar next, because that's an opportunity that unfortunately he's just lost with Barbosa pulling out. Edmund Shabazian picked up a performance bonus with a great knockout in the very first round against Dylan Booker on this card, and I think for him it's a great win, but Dylan Booker unfortunately is not UFC level. He's yet to be at UFC level. Now he could look at possibly leaving the company, picking up a few wins on the local scene and then returning back, and it could be a great resurgence for Dylan Booker, but I don't think right now he's at all UFC level. For Edmund Shabazian, picks up a win. It's about building momentum now. Now, this momentum for Edmund Shabazian is not momentum we've seen at all since he started his great UFC career, really burst onto the scene, but from then on, it's been on and off. Yo-yo fights, up and down, wins, losses here and there. So we need to start building some consistency. Now, someone like Andrei Petroski, who also was on this card and picked up a great win against Rodolfo Vieira, that's a great opportunity, I think, for Edmund Shabazian, because both men have shared similar opponents in Booker and also Gerald Meerschaert. They both picked up sort of similar results against them. So I think Edmund can look to move to Andrei Petroski next, and then from there he could look at the likes of your fringe rankings like Bo Nickel or like an Ikram Aliskerov, someone like that. I think if we move too quick again with Edmund Shabazian, you stand the risk of him picking up a few losses again. For Edmund Shabazian, I think it's a rebuilding process, a slower rebuild, and Andrei Petroski, same timeline, and by all means similar opponents. I think they are made for each other next, and that's my pick for Edmund Shabazian. Andrei Petroski next. Nazim Sadikov picked up a great win against Ismail Bonfim via a doctor stoppage at the end of the very first round on this main card. Now for Sadikov, I think he is going to be looking at moving past this fight as quick as possible. Bonfim had some good success in that very first round, and a call for a rematch is there because in that doctor stoppage there was a lot of controversy, a bunch of mixed communication between doctors, coaches, referees. So I think Bonfim can feel very hard done by, but by all means, it was a great question mark kick, head kick that did by all means concuss Bonfim. So I think for Sadikov, he's looking at moving on quickly, because for Sadikov, his best form has come when he's been active. 2023 was a good year for him, picked up a few back-to-back wins. 24, we didn't see him at all. So I think for 2025, it's got to be an active year for him. Someone I'd love to see him in against is Guram Kutateladze. Now, he's an excellent fighter, and everyone loves to see Kutateladze fight. His last fight against Jordan Vucenic was unbelievable. The skill on display, as long as the brute force, is amazing when you ever watch the Georgian Viking take place. So Guram Kutateladze would be an awesome opponent. Ismail Bonfim, I think he feels quite hard done by. I would like him to sort of push the rematch and say, look, I was perfectly fine, I could have continued, but the doctors made the call and the result is on the resume. For Ismail Bonfim, it's a loss to Sadikov and a loss to Saint Denis. Win against Pichel, but again, Bonfim's going to be annoyed with himself for letting that happen, especially after having a good first round, just getting caught by that, question mark head kick. So I think for him, you are be looking lower down in lightweight. You might get an up and coming prospect. One I like to see, of course, being British and British bias always being on display here at Combat Sports UK. Shamrock deserves his opportunity in the UFC. He's got a great fight coming up in May. If he wins that, he moves to 12-1. I would love to see Shamrock in the UFC, especially fighting someone like Ismael Bonfim. Imagine that in a packed out arena in the UK or even down in Brazil. I'm sure Shamrock would love to go down there and cause it absolute chaos. So that's my pick for Ismael Bonfim. I will move past the main card opener in Andre Petroski because I have picked his next opponent in Edmund Shazian higher up on the card. We'll move to the prelim headliner, which was Jose Delgado versus Conor Matthews. Now, we all picked on Combat Sports UK Delgado to make a statement, and that was what he did in sensational fashion. A great knockout, and he moves on from here in a real promising spot, especially at featherweight. Now, for featherweights and bantamweights, there is one man that comes across the table who is the prospect killer, and that is Christian Rodriguez. C-Rod just beat Austin Bashi, and again, he is one of those men that you will always fight if you are an up-and-coming prospect at 135 or 145. So I think Christian Rodriguez probably next for someone like Jose Delgado. And if you get a win against C-Rod, that's an excellent statement because Raul Osas Jr. couldn't beat him, either could someone like Austin Bashi. So I think for Jose Delgado, Christian Rodriguez is next. A big win there, and we're looking at many big things in future. Deep on the prelims, we have the brother of Ismael Bonfim, was Gabriel Bonfim, who picked up an amazing performance bonus with a deadly choke over Chaos Williams, who was a violent opponent, and it was a real fun prospect of a fight. Unfortunately, it was down on the prelims, so you may have missed it if you only tuned in for the main card. It was a great performance by Bonfim, and he really announced himself as coming back into this welterweight conversation, especially around the fringes of those rankings. Now, I believe at 15 at welterweight, you're looking at someone like Michael Venom Page. Now, that would be a great fight for him, but I think it's a step too far, quite too quickly for him. So I think someone like Randy Brown is an excellent matchup for him. Randy Brown's just coming off the back of a defeat to someone like Brian Battle. Now, I think for Bonfim, he needs to go back in quite quickly. I'd love to see him on a Brazil card. We tend to go around May time down to Brazil. So I think Bonfim versus Randy Brown's an excellent fight, easily on a main card there in a fight night in Brazil. I think it's a brilliant fight for Gabriel Bonfim. If he picks up a win there, by all means, we've got ranking conversations right round the corner. For Chaos Williams, it's unfortunate. I would firstly focus on getting well, because that was a scary finish, and he looked well out of it. So I would firstly check in, obviously, all your medicals, and then once you're clear, by all means, come back in. For Chaos Williams, it's unfortunate. Like I said, you can get caught with someone like Bonfim with that sort of grappling game. Submissions are always going to be a part of the game. But for Chaos Williams, it's just a case of rebuilding, get your medicals all in check first, and then come back. Finally, we move to the big man, Walter Walker, brother of Johnny Walker, now ranked heavyweight. He beats Dontel Mays with a heel hook, his second heel hook in a row. It's becoming a bit of a trademark for Walter Walker, the clean monster. So I think Dontel Mays was at 15. I'd like to see Walker slot right in there at 15. Now 13-1, heavyweight does need a bit of flavour. Unfortunately, it is one of those deader divisions in the sport, unless you're looking outside of Tom Aspinall and John Jones. The rest of the division is unfortunately not too interesting, too intriguing. So I think Walter Walker can add a bit of flavour in there. By all means, I'd like to see an all-Brazilian matchup for him. Gihonta Diniz is also at 14, so 14 versus 15. I've already spoken about a Brazil card in May that we've, guessing of. This easily goes on that main card, ticks off another slot there. Walker versus Diniz. We can get it out nice and quickly. Sort of end of May time gives Walker enough time to recover, and he could be looking at a third heel hook in a row. But for Walter Walker, he's into the rankings now, and by all means, the only way is up. Thank you for watching this Combat Sports UK video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow for more MMA news stories coming out. And we've also got a lot of boxing news as well. So keep up to date, because we've got everything Combat Sports here at Combat Sports UK.